Dr. Rathod, Geoffrey Chaucer is often called the father of English literature. Could you explain why Chaucer holds such a monumental title?
Certainly, Chaucer's contribution lies in popularizing Middle English at a time when Latin and French dominated. His choice to write in English established it as a credible literary language, paving the way for future English writers. Consider this: before Chaucer, literature in English was virtually non-existent on the serious literary scene.
That's fascinating, but some might argue that writing in English limited his audience. How would you respond to this critique?
A valid point, but Chaucer's decision democratized literature, making it accessible to a broader audience. This choice not only nurtured a budding English literary tradition but also inspired writers like Shakespeare. It's akin to how social media today amplifies diverse voices, breaking the monopoly of traditional media outlets.
So, looking forward, do you see parallels in how language evolves in literature today?
Indeed, as digital communication evolves, so does language in literature. Just as Chaucer's English shaped the literary landscape, contemporary authors are redefining narrative forms and language use, creating new literary traditions for the digital age.
Dr. Rathod, the Canterbury Tales offers a vivid depiction of medieval society. What makes this work a significant social commentary? Yet, some scholars argue that Chaucer's portrayal lacks depth in certain social critiques. What are your thoughts on this?
While it's true that some tales focus more on entertainment than critique, Chaucer's subtlety in satire is his strength. He invites readers, much like a modern audience, to discern deeper meanings beneath the surface. The tale's unfinished nature even leaves room for interpretation, much like an open-ended debate.
And how does this influence modern storytelling? Let's delve into the technical aspects of Chaucer's writing. Dr. Rathod, what are some of his metrical innovations?
Chaucer is credited with the rhyme royal stanza and early use of blank verse. This was revolutionary as it introduced new rhythmic possibilities to English poetry. His focus on realism, portraying everyday life over allegorical themes, provided a truthful glimpse into his contemporaries' lives, contrasting with the idealism prevalent in earlier literature.
But doesn't realism risk losing the imaginative element that makes literature engaging? Looking ahead, how might these innovations continue to impact poetry?
Chaucer's metrical and thematic innovations inspire poets to experiment with form and content. As poetry evolves, these foundations encourage poets to push boundaries while remaining grounded in human experience, much like Chaucer did in his time. Chaucer's influence is profound. His use of English paved the way for the Elizabethan era's literary flourishing, inspiring writers like Shakespeare and Spenser. His exploration of various literary forms and themes set a precedent for artistic experimentation. For instance, his tale's narrative structure influenced modern novels' multifaceted storytelling. While his context is medieval, the timelessness of human nature in his works keeps them relevant. Themes of morality, folly, and social critique transcend time, much like classic literature that continues to resonate despite its historical setting. Chaucer's works are studied not just for historical insight but for their enduring artistic merit.
What future directions do you see for Chaucer studies?
Future studies may explore interdisciplinary approaches, integrating digital humanities to offer fresh insights. As technology advances, new tools will enhance our understanding of Chaucer's text, ensuring his legacy continues to inspire
Welcome,
scholars
Dr.
and writers
Rathod,
alike.
to our podcast on literary classics. Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales is often regarded as a cornerstone of English literature. Could you give us a brief overview of its significance and structure?
Absolutely. The Canterbury Tales is a collection of 24 stories written in Middle English. Chaucer masterfully portrays a diverse group of pilgrims narrating tales on their journey to Canterbury Cathedral. This framework introduces themes ranging from social satire to philosophical musings.
It's fascinating how Chaucer uses a pilgrimage as a narrative device. Do you think this setting contributes to the tale's enduring relevance?
Indeed, the pilgrimage setting allows Chaucer to explore a microcosm of medieval society. Each character represents different societal roles, providing a rich tapestry of perspectives. Even today, the themes of social critique and human nature resonate with modern audiences.
And in a way, this mirrors our current journeys in life, each with its own stories and lessons. Let's delve into one of the most famous tales, The Knight's Tale. The Knight's Tale opens the Canterbury Tales with a chivalric romance. Could you explain the central themes of love and honor within this story, Dr. Rathod?
Certainly, the tale centers around two knights, Palamon and Arcite, who fall in love with Amelie. Their story is a complex interplay of courtly love and chivalric duty. Honor dictates their actions, yet love drives their rivalry. The tale reflects the medieval ideals of romance and valor.
It's interesting how these themes are depicted. However, isn't there a critique embedded within this idealization?
Yes, Chaucer subtly critiques the destructive nature of romantic obsession. The rivalry leads to conflict, illustrating the potential folly of blind devotion. As an anecdote, the gods' intervention in the tale underscores how fate often subverts human intentions, adding complexity to the narrative.
And how do you see this tale influencing future storytelling or societal ideals?
Its lasting impact lies in its exploration of human emotions and societal norms. As society evolves, the conversation around love and honor continues, influenced by the foundational narratives like The Knight's Tale.
Another compelling aspect is the role of divine intervention. How do the gods Venus, Mars, and Saturn shape the narrative's outcome?
The gods are pivotal, embodying Chaucer's exploration of fate versus free will. Each character's prayers align with their desires. Arcite prays for victory to Mars, Palamon for love to Venus. Yet Saturn's unexpected earthquake underscores fate's unpredictable nature.
This introduces a fascinating debate. Are the characters merely pawns of destiny, or do they possess agency?
It's a nuanced portrayal. While the gods' will seems dominant, Chaucer leaves room for human agency within these constraints. This duality invites readers to ponder their own place in the cosmos, balancing destiny and decision.
As we look to the future, how might this theme of fate versus free will inform our understanding of human behavior?
In a world increasingly influenced by technology and AI, this theme remains relevant. It challenges us to consider how much control we truly have and the ethical implications of our choices within both natural and artificial constraints.
The tale concludes with Theseus's speech on cosmic harmony and human mortality. How does this reflect the chivalric code and its relevance today?
Theseus's speech elevates the narrative from personal conflict to universal themes. It encapsulates the chivalric ideals of order and resolution. Today, it prompts reflection on our own moral codes and how they align with or diverge from medieval values.
Given today's societal shifts, do you think the chivalric code has a place in modern ethics?
While some aspects like valor and loyalty endure, the rigid structures of the past have evolved. Modern ethics prioritize inclusivity and equality. The counterargument is that chivalry may sometimes limit rather than liberate, yet its core virtues continue to inspire.
As we wrap up, how might future generations reinterpret these tales in light of emerging societal norms?
Future interpretations will likely continue to balance tradition with innovation. As contexts shift, the Canterbury Tales will remain a dynamic canvas for exploring timeless human issues driven by the changing tides of
Dr.
cultural
Rathod.
evolution.
Geoffrey Chaucer's The Miller's Tale is renowned for its ribald humor and clever deceptions. Can you start by describing its main plot?
Of course, the tale involves a carpenter named John, his young wife Alison, a cunning student Nicholas, and a smitten parish clerk, Absalon. Nicholas tricks John into thinking a second flood is coming to get him out of the way so he can spend the night with Alison.
It's a comedic setup for sure. Now, Chaucer's use of the fablio form sharply contrasts the preceding Knight's Tale. How does that affect the reader's perception?
The fablio's crude humor serves as a counterbalance to the Knight's Tale's courtly elegance. It parodies high romantic ideals, focusing instead on base human desires and deception, offering readers a taste of Chaucer's narrative flexibility.
Some might argue that this tale's humor is too vulgar. How would you respond to that criticism?
While the humor is coarse, it reflects the medieval audience's appetite for such stories. Chaucer uses it to satirize social norms and human folly, which can provide a rich lens through which we examine societal dynamics.
Let's delve into the theme of deception. Nicholas's trickery is central to the plot. What does this say about gullibility and intelligence?
Nicholas exemplifies how cleverness can exploit naivety. His ruse with the Noah's flood demonstrates how intelligence can manipulate those who lack critical thinking, as seen with John's ready belief in Nicholas's absurd claim.
Yet, isn't there a danger in glorifying such deception? It might suggest intelligence is synonymous with moral ambiguity.
True, but Chaucer's satire serves to critique rather than glorify. The humorous consequences highlight the absurdity and folly of gullibility, urging readers to question appearances and be wary of cunning individuals.
In modern contexts, how could these themes be seen as relevant?
In today's digital age, with misinformation rampant, this tale reminds us of the necessity for critical evaluation, highlighting that intelligence must come with ethical responsibility.
The Miller's Tale starkly contrasts with the Knight's Tale. Dr. Rathod, can you discuss the significance of this juxtaposition?
Certainly, the Knight's Tale is steeped in chivalric ideals and noble themes, while the Miller's Tale subverts these with irreverence and humor. This placement in the Canterbury Tales allows Chaucer to explore the spectrum of human experience from lofty to lewd.
Does this contrast suggest Chaucer had a cynical view of courtly love?
Not necessarily cynical, but critical. By juxtaposing the two tales, Chaucer exposes the potential superficiality of courtly love, advocating for a more realistic understanding of human relationships.
How might this duality in themes resonate with contemporary audiences?
Modern audiences can appreciate Chaucer's layered storytelling, which mirrors our own societal dichotomies between idealism and realism, urging us to find balance between the two.
Switching gears to The Wife of Bath's Tale, often hailed for its proto-feminist themes. Dr. Rathod, what makes this tale stand out in Chaucer's collection?
The Wife of Bath, through her tale, challenges medieval gender norms by advocating for female sovereignty in marriage. Her story about a knight learning to respect women's autonomy was radical for its time.
However, some critics argue that the knight's journey to redemption is problematic given his crime. What's your take?
While the knight's initial crime is indeed troubling, the tale's focus is his transformation and the lesson in mutual respect and equality. It critiques patriarchal power and highlights the importance of consent and partnership.
In what ways does The Wife of Bath's Tale continue to influence current discussions on gender equality?
The tale remains relevant as it underscores the importance of autonomy and respect in relationships, echoing modern feminist calls for equality and mutual
Dr.
empowerment
Rathod,
in partnerships.
Chaucer's The Wife of Bath's Tale centers on the theme of female sovereignty. Could you elaborate on how this theme unfolds within the narrative?
Certainly, the tale reveals that women desire autonomy in relationships. The knight's quest to find what women most desire ultimately shows that women seek control over their lives. The old woman's transformation into a beautiful wife after he relinquishes control symbolizes that harmony emerges from granting agency.
This seems to parallel modern discussions on gender equality. Still, doesn't the tale's context complicate its message on power dynamics, particularly with the knight's initial crime?
Indeed, the knight's crime against the maiden marks a stark power imbalance. However, the role reversal where the queen and her court decide his fate underscores a societal shift toward recognizing women's voices. This reversal critiques medieval gender hierarchies and advocates for justice.
While the tale promotes female sovereignty, could its resolution suggest a nuanced balance rather than absolute dominance by either gender?
Absolutely. The ending, where the old woman relinquishes control back to her husband after he proves his willingness to grant it to her, suggests that true harmony lies in mutual respect and balance, rather than domination by one gender over the other.
Dr. Rathod, the theme of role reversal is quite pronounced. How does this aspect serve the broader narrative of justice within the tale?
The tale starts with the knight's egregious act, stripping the maiden of her control. However, the queen and her court's intervention in the knight's fate marks a significant role reversal, suggesting that justice involves not just punishment but reformation through understanding women's desires.
It's interesting how the old woman further asserts power by forcing the knight into marriage. Does this action critique the traditional male dominance of the period?
Precisely. The old woman's demand for marriage and the subsequent negotiation of terms highlight the critique of patriarchal norms. It showcases how power dynamics can shift, challenging the medieval expectation of female submission and advocating for equitable partnerships.
Yet, isn't there a risk that such a reversal might perpetuate a cycle of domination, rather than equality?
That's a valid concern. However, the narrative ultimately suggests that the key to resolving this cycle lies in mutual respect and shared power, rather than merely flipping who holds control.
Now, shifting to the Pardoner's Tale, it offers a sharp critique of greed and hypocrisy. Dr. Rathod, how does Chaucer use the Pardoner's character to explore these themes?
Chaucer's Pardoner embodies hypocrisy, openly admitting his greed while preaching against it. His sermons, albeit powerful, are a means to exploit others for profit, underscoring the disconnect between moral preaching and personal practice. He serves as a mirror to ecclesiastical corruption in Chaucer's era.
The tale itself is quite illustrative of greed's destructive power. Can you elaborate on how the narrative unfolds this theme?
Certainly, the tale follows three men whose greed leads to mutual destruction. Their quest to find death leads them to gold, which becomes their undoing. The treasure, ironically, fulfills their quest by bringing about their demise, reinforcing the moral that greed leads to ruin.
While the Pardoner's Tale conveys a clear moral, doesn't his character complicate the message, given his own admitted greed?
Absolutely. The Pardoner's self-awareness and exploitation of faith for gain highlights the irony and hypocrisy within religious figures. It adds a layer of complexity, questioning the sincerity of moral teachings when those who preach them are corrupt themselves.
Dr. Rathod, the treasure in the Pardoner's Tale acts as a powerful symbol. How does it encapsulate the tale's moral lessons?
The treasure embodies greed's destructive potential. It acts as a catalyst for betrayal as the three men abandon their quest for death and instead plot against each other for the gold. The treasure ultimately becomes their metaphorical death, embodying the very demise they sought.
This symbolism seems quite layered. How does it relate to the Pardoner's own hypocrisy?
Ironically, the treasure mirrors the Pardoner's own greed and corruption. While he preaches against avarice, he admits to exploiting others' desires for personal gain. The treasure's role underscores the tale's critique of moral corruption, both within the narrative and in the Pardoner himself.
Looking forward, how can these medieval tales inform contemporary discussions on morality and power?
These tales remain relevant, prompting reflection on power dynamics and moral integrity. They remind us that true progress requires addressing the roots of inequality and hypocrisy, ensuring that actions align with ethical teachings, a lesson as pertinent
Dr.
today
Rathod,
as in
Chaucer's
time.
The Pardoner's Tale is lauded for its exploration of greed. How does the Latin phrase, radix malorum est cupiditas, encapsulate this theme?
This phrase, meaning greed is the root of all evil, is central to the tale. Chaucer illustrates this through three rioters who, consumed by avarice, find gold and ultimately betray and kill each other. It's a vivid depiction of how greed can lead to mutual destruction.
Indeed, but some might argue that the presence of greed is a natural human trait. Could this tale exaggerate its destructiveness?
That's a fair point. However, Chaucer uses the tale's events to amplify the consequences of unchecked greed. The rioters' demise serves as a cautionary example, yet it's also an exaggerated reflection of real-world greed-driven conflicts such as corporate scandals.
Given this portrayal, do you see any modern parallels where unchecked greed might lead to similar outcomes?
Absolutely. Consider the 2008 financial crisis, where the pursuit of profit led to disastrous economic consequences. Chaucer's tale remains relevant, warning us of greed's potential to cause widespread harm.
Let's delve into the character of the Pardoner himself. How does Chaucer use irony through him to critique institutional corruption?
The Pardoner is a fascinating character. He preaches against greed yet admits his own sermons are driven by greed for profit, not spiritual salvation. This hypocrisy highlights religious institutions' corruption as he exploits faith for personal gain.
Critics argue that Chaucer's portrayal is overly cynical. Could this be seen as an unfair indictment of the Church?
While some see it as harsh, Chaucer's intention was likely to expose flaws rather than condemn entirely. His satire serves to critique and inspire reform, much like modern whistleblowers revealing corruption to instigate change.
In light of this, how might Chaucer's depiction of the Pardoner influence contemporary discussions on institutional integrity?
Chaucer's work encourages us to scrutinize authority figures critically. In today's context, it underscores the importance of transparency and accountability, reminding us that unchecked power can lead to exploitation.
Moving on to symbolism, how does Chaucer use the gold coins in the tale to convey deeper meanings?
The gold represents greed's corrupting influence. Initially, the rioters seek to confront death, but upon discovering the treasure, their focus shifts, leading to betrayal. The gold becomes a metaphor for death itself, illustrating how wealth can become one's downfall.
Some readers might find the symbolism straightforward, nearly didactic. Could Chaucer have employed a subtler approach?
Chaucer's approach is indeed direct, but its clarity serves the moral lesson well. By making the gold a literal cause of death, he emphasizes the tangible consequences of greed, akin to how environmental exploitation leads to ecological disasters today.
Given this clear symbolism, do you see its reflection in modern narratives or societal issues?
Certainly, modern media often depict wealth as a double-edged sword. In films like The Wolf of Wall Street, we see similar narratives where the pursuit of wealth leads to moral decay and personal ruin.
Finally, Dr. Rathod, how does Chaucer extend his critique beyond individual greed to address broader societal issues in the Pardoner's tale?
Through the Pardoner's exploitation of his religious role, Chaucer critiques systemic corruption. By selling fake relics, he profits from faith, reflecting the broader corruption within medieval religious practices, a critique that resonates with modern concerns about ethical leadership.
Some might argue that focusing on such corruption risks overshadowing the good within institutions. What are your thoughts?
Chaucer's work encourages vigilance and accountability. As we navigate complex institutions, his insights remind us to uphold integrity and challenge corrupt practices, ensuring they serve the public good rather than private interests.
It's fascinating that Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales was meant to be a massive work of 120 stories. How do you think the unfinished nature impacts its legacy?
The original plan was indeed ambitious, with each of the 30 pilgrims telling 4 stories. However, only 24 tales were completed. This unfinished state actually adds an aura of mystery and leaves room for academic speculation about what could have been.
That makes sense. An unfinished masterpiece invites endless possibilities. Yet, some might argue it detracts from its completeness as a literary work. How do scholars address this counterpoint?
That's a valid concern, but many argue that the tales we do have form a complete enough tapestry of medieval life. Besides, the fragmented nature allows readers to engage with the text imaginatively, similar to how modern TV series sometimes leave cliffhangers.
So, moving forward, could this unfinished aspect inspire modern storytellers in their narrative structures?
Absolutely, the incomplete form encourages storytellers to explore non-linear, open-ended narratives. This mirrors our current media landscape where interactive and participatory storytelling is gaining traction.
Chaucer wrote in Middle English when Latin and French were dominant. How crucial was this choice for English literature, Dr. Rathod?
Chaucer's decision was groundbreaking. The Canterbury Tales helped elevate English to a respected literary language, setting a precedent for future writers. It's akin to a modern author opting to write in a regional dialect to reach wider audiences.
Yet, some might argue that writing in English limited his reach during his time. How do we reconcile this with his legacy today?
While initially limiting, it eventually expanded his reach. By choosing English, Chaucer tapped into emerging nationalism. His works became accessible to the common people, paving the way for English to become a global language.
Given this historical impact, how might Chaucer's decision influence future language and literary movements?
Chaucer's legacy suggests that linguistic inclusivity can drive cultural evolution. As global societies become more interconnected, embracing linguistic diversity in literature could foster cross-cultural understanding and innovation.
Chaucer's characters beautifully capture a cross-section of 14th-century society. Dr. Rathod, how does this contribute to the work's social commentary?
Chaucer's characters, from nobles to peasants, offer a vivid depiction of societal hierarchies. Through their tales, he critiques class inequality and church corruption, much like George Orwell's Animal Farm critiques power dynamics through allegory.
Some critics argue that Chaucer's satire lacks direct solutions to societal issues. What is your take on this?
While it's true that Chaucer doesn't provide clear solutions, his strength lies in raising awareness. By holding a mirror to society, he invites readers to question norms and consider reforms themselves, fostering a mindset of critical engagement.
In today's context, how can Chaucer's approach to social critique inform modern writers and activists?
Chaucer's blend of humor and critique can inspire current writers to tackle social issues with wit and empathy. This could lead to more engaging and thought-provoking discussions about contemporary societal challenges.
The Canterbury Tales employs a wide range of genres. Dr. Rathod, how does this diversity enhance the narrative experience?
The use of multiple genres from romance to fablio reflects the complexity of human experience. This diversity allows each tale to resonate differently, much like a modern anthology series that explores various themes through distinct episodes.
Critics sometimes suggest that this genre diversity might fragment the narrative. How do you respond to that? Looking ahead, how might this approach influence future storytelling techniques?
Chaucer's blend of genres encourages experimentation with narrative forms. Future storytellers might draw on this to craft immersive, multi-genre narratives that offer layered, multifaceted experiences to audiences.
The Canterbury Tales is framed by a unique storytelling device, isn't it? Could you explain how this structure works?
Absolutely. Chaucer's tales are framed by a pilgrimage to St. Thomas Becket's shrine in Canterbury. It's akin to a road trip where diverse characters share stories to pass the time, which was quite innovative for its era.
Interesting. And the pilgrimage itself serves as more than just a backdrop, right?
Exactly. The journey symbolizes a spiritual quest, resonating with the renewal associated with spring. However, it also satirizes the pilgrims' less-than-holy behaviors, offering a lens into medieval society's foibles.
Given this dual nature, how does Chaucer's approach influence later works?
Chaucer's framing device inspired future narrative structures such as Boccaccio's Decameron. By interweaving tales with a connecting journey, he set a precedent for exploring complex themes through personal narratives.
Despite its acclaim, the Canterbury Tales remains unfinished. Dr. Rathod, what was Chaucer's initial vision for this collection?
Chaucer ambitiously planned for each pilgrim to tell 4 stories, totaling 120 tales. However, he only completed 24 before his death, leaving the work incomplete, yet still profoundly influential.
Does the unfinished nature detract from its literary value?
Not at all. In fact, the open-endedness invites readers to imagine their own conclusions and reflects the unpredictability of life itself. This aspect has sparked a wealth of critical interpretation and academic debate.
Could this unfinished quality have been an intentional device by Chaucer?
It's a compelling idea. While there's no evidence to support intentional incompletion, the fragmentary nature does mirror the fragmented nature of medieval society, perhaps adding an unintended layer of depth.
Chaucer's tales span multiple genres. Dr. Rathod, how does this variety enhance the narrative?
Chaucer's use of romance, fablio, allegory, and satire creates a rich tapestry that appeals to a broad audience. For instance, The Miller's Tale humorously mocks courtly love, contrasting heavier tales like The Pardoner's Tale, which critiques greed.
This genre diversity is quite significant. Does it reflect Chaucer's critique of society?
Indeed, through satire and varied narratives, Chaucer exposes societal hypocrisies and class tensions. By juxtaposing different genres, he highlights the multifaceted nature of human folly and corruption.
Looking forward, how might modern writers draw inspiration from Chaucer's genre blending?
Contemporary authors can adopt Chaucer's approach to engage with varied themes and audiences. In today's multimedia landscape, blending genres can offer nuanced perspectives on current societal issues.
The characters in the Canterbury Tales are richly developed. Dr. Rathod, how does Chaucer use them to provide social commentary?
Chaucer crafts each pilgrim with distinct traits and flaws representing various societal classes. For example, the wife of Bath challenges gender norms, advocating for female sovereignty in marriage, thus critiquing contemporary gender dynamics.
Could you give another example of Chaucer's social critique through character?
Certainly, the pardoner epitomizes church corruption with his tale underscoring greed. This character serves as a satire on religious hypocrisy, a bold critique during Chaucer's time.
Considering modern parallels, how might today's authors utilize Chaucer's character-driven critique?
Authors today can draw on Chaucer's method by creating complex characters that reflect current societal issues. This approach can foster critical dialogue and challenge readers to reflect on contemporary social
Welcome to our deep dive into the
structures.
Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. Dr. Geoffrey Rathod, tell us about the knight's role and significance in the Tales.
The knight is portrayed as the epitome of chivalry and nobility. He embarks on crusades and tells the knight's tale, a story that embodies love and honor. This tale reflects medieval ideals akin to the legendary Arthurian knights.
Given his virtues, how does the knight's character contrast with others in the Canterbury Tales?
Unlike the more flawed characters, the knight is idealized. However, some argue this is Chaucer's critique of knighthood, suggesting his perfection is unrealistic in contrast to the evident human flaws in figures like the friar or the monk.
How might Chaucer's portrayal of the knight inspire modern audiences?
In today's context, the knight serves as a reminder of integrity and honor, qualities sometimes overshadowed by ambition. His story encourages readers to strive for these timeless virtues despite societal changes.
Moving on, the knight's son, the squire, offers a contrasting perspective. How does Chaucer depict him, Dr. Rathod?
The squire is youthful, artistic, and full of romantic ideals, almost a Renaissance man in a medieval setting. His tale is more fanciful, reflecting his youthful exuberance and love for art and music.
Some critics suggest the squire's character lacks depth compared to the knight. What's your take on this?
Indeed, the squire may seem superficial, but this mirrors the transitional phase of youth. Chaucer might be highlighting the generational shift from traditional chivalric values to emerging Renaissance humanism.
In what ways can the squire's character be relevant today?
His youthful passion and artistic inclinations resonate with today's younger generations who value creativity and self-expression. It's a reminder that every era's youth redefine cultural narratives.
Let's delve into the prioress, Madame Eglantine. What makes her character complex, Dr. Rathod?
The prioress is intriguing due to her dual nature. She displays courtly manners, yet her amor vincit omnia broach hints at secular leanings. Chaucer uses her to explore the tension between religious piety and worldly desires.
Isn't there a counter-argument about her being a satirical depiction?
Certainly, some argue Chaucer satirizes her superficial piety, implying hypocrisy. Yet this complexity makes her relatable as it mirrors the universal struggle between personal desires and societal roles.
How might her character inform contemporary discussions on identity?
In a world where identity is multifaceted, the prioress exemplifies the balance between public persona and private self. Her story encourages us to embrace rather than conceal the complexities of our identities.
Finally, let's explore the friar, Hubert. What can you tell us about his character, Dr. Rathod?
The friar is a quintessential example of hypocrisy in the Canterbury Tales. He takes bribes for confessions, embodying the corruption Chaucer critiques. His actions are a stark contrast to the ideals he professes.
Some readers might argue that the friar's behavior is exaggerated for effect. What are your thoughts?
While exaggerated, the friar's character serves as a cautionary tale about unchecked power and moral duplicity. His story is a timeless critique of those who exploit positions of trust.
In today's context, how might the friar's tale resonate with audiences?
The Friar's Tale is a mirror reflecting current issues of institutional corruption. It challenges modern audiences to demand accountability and integrity, emphasizing the need for ethical leadership in all spheres.